Hi everyone. It's the middle of winter here in Southern California. I'm in Zone 10B. In contrast to the rainy seasons of the last 2 years, this current La Nina weather pattern has caused drier conditions in our area with less than 2 inches of rain. With the lack of rain, watering and mulching the containers has been a priority. The veggies have responded well as the garden is thriving. In this video, I'll take you on a tour of our container garden and harvest some veggies. I'll also be doing some chores. I'll amend the soil in my containers with homemade leaf mold. I'll add mulch to the grow bags using the Ruth Stout method of growing potatoes. I'll plant green onion cuttings. I'll thin carrot seedlings, and I'll start sweet potato slips indoors. We would love to hear from you in the comments about any connections you have as you watch this video. If you get anything out of the video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. We would really appreciate it. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Take a look at this gorgeous pot of Japanese turnips that I sowed back in November. If we go inside, you can see some nice turnips back there. So let's go ahead and harvest some of these turnips. Wow, look at this one. Oh man, it's huge. Oh. Wow. Look at the size of this turnip. That's the biggest I've ever grown. We have several pots of this Pak Choi. Ginger likes to chop this up and place it in her Japanese dumpling called gyoza. We also like to add it to salads, and we add it to hot pot. It's a really good cut and come again vegetable because, as you can see here with this variety, just take the leaves off and new leaves continue growing. And we'll just harvest this until it goes to flower. I have 2 pots of this broccoli called Artwork. You can see that they have grown to about 2.5 feet tall. Once you cut out the main crown here, all of these side shoots develop, and that's what you're harvesting. So I have the second pot back over here, and you can see a lot of these side shoots have developed along the main stem. But I have to be honest, I'm really a little disappointed because they haven't come back with as much vigor as I had hoped. They're, kind of small. They're not very robust. So what I did is I gave them a shot of this liquid fertilizer. I use this Dr. Earth homegrown organic fertilizer. You mix 2 ounces of this into a gallon of water and water it in. So I'm hoping that this organic fertilizer is going to help these side shoots develop. We've been harvesting this Dinosaur Kale for the past several weeks, and we absolutely love it. Here's a second pot of that kale. These leaves are very robust and they hold up well in Asian hot pot. We used to use Napa cabbage in hot pot, but we've switched over to this kale because it holds up so well. You can see all of the scars along the stem where we have picked the leaves over the past several weeks. I also like to use this in our salads. I make a chopped salad where I cut this up finely and then add it with other greens. So let's go ahead and harvest some of this kale. In this pot I have this beautiful Swiss chard. We've been picking this for the past several weeks and adding it to our salads. This is a really gorgeous plant, and it's a cut and come again, so as you pick it, as you can see I've been picking it here, as you pick it, it stimulates more leaves to develop. So let's go ahead and harvest some Swiss chard. Take a look at this beautiful pot of carrots that I sowed about 7 weeks ago. I'm growing these in succession. The other pot is about 10 weeks old. So I'm going to go in and thin these carrots out to about an inch apart, because if I don't do that, they will get really densely packed. They won't grow to their fullest potential, and they're hard to harvest when they get really thick. So let's go ahead and do the thinning. All right, I thinned out those carrots, and you can see there's much more room for the stronger carrots that I left behind to grow. It is a bit painful to remove all of these plants, but it's a necessary evil, because unless you do so, they will get too densely packed and they will not grow to their full potential. Let's take a look at this first pot of carrots that I sowed several months back and harvest some of them. There's a little nicer one there. Okay, that's a good amount for snacking on. Here are some green onion cuttings that Ginger saved from the kitchen. I'm going to plant these into this pot here. Let's take a closer look at these cuttings. So if I pull them out, they've been sitting in water and they've been growing for the past week. That's when Ginger used these last. If we take a look at this one, for example, you can see where she cut it. So everything above this is what she used in her cooking. So she set these aside. We placed them in water, and you can see how much growth has taken place in just over a week. So I'm going to plant these into the pot straight away, and they should be good to grow and provide us with more green onions. To plant these green onion cuttings, all you have to do is make a hole, and I have mulch in here, so I have to go through the mulch into the soil below and just drop that cutting into the hole. And that's all there is to it. Really, really simple. All right, let's go ahead and plant out the rest of these cuttings. All right, those green onion cuttings are planted and looking good. Let's take a look at the pot next to it. These green onions are about a year old, and you'll notice that they're thin, not very robust looking. And the reason for that is because they were down here in this shaded area for the past several months. So I brought them over here, elevated them, so now you can see they're getting good sun, and that should allow those stalks to thicken up. All right, green onions are good to go. In these two grow bags, I have yellow potatoes that are about 12 weeks old. In the inset, you can see back in December, in our last update, the foliage just starting to emerge from the mulch. Since then, I've added more mulch all the way to the top of the grow bag. This is called the Ruth Stout method. Instead of backfilling with soil, I backfilled with this shredded cedar mulch, and now it has completely leafed out. I put this tomato cage around it so that the foliage has support as it continues to grow. Next to the yellow potatoes, I have these red potatoes that I started about 8 weeks ago. So these were started a little bit later. And again, they were started from seed potatoes. So if I go down here to the bottom, you'll see that you have some foliage here, and these plants have reached the top of the grow bag. I'm going to backfill this with more mulch to the top of this one here, this plant. And as this one continues to grow and the rest of the plants leaf out, I'll just continue to add mulch like I did for the yellow potatoes until the mulch gets to the top of the grow bag. Okay, so I have added more mulch to this grow bag. So it's right up to the top of that smaller plant. And as that grows out, I'll add more mulch until the mulch gets to the top of the grow bag. I have a purple sweet potato here and a Japanese sweet potato here. I'm going to be growing these in the springtime. In order to grow sweet potatoes, you need to have slips. And slips are simply the shoots that grow from these sweet potatoes. So let me show you how I do that. I'm going to be using this tray that has holes at the bottom of it to start growing the slips from these sweet potatoes. Now these will fit just perfectly into this tray. Into this tray, I'm going to put a mix of 50% perlite and 50% potting soil. Okay, so here is the potting soil, and here's the perlite. So I've added water to this mix, and I'm going to combine the water and the potting soil and the perlite. All right, let's go ahead and place this into the tray. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and spread that soil out and just simply take my sweet potatoes and place them directly onto that soil. Okay, so that is the Satsuma, the Japanese sweet potato, and here is the purple sweet potato. Okay, so you want to make sure you have good contact, and that's all it takes. And then I'm going to place this pan underneath this tray so that excess water can drain into this pan. I'm going to now take this inside and place it on a heat mat. I brought the sweet potatoes inside and placed them on this heat mat in a south-facing window. Now, over time, from the eyes of the potatoes, we'll see these little buds form on the surface, and those buds will turn into shoots. We'll use those as they grow out as slips for our sweet potatoes, and we'll plant those out in the spring. If you'd like to see a more detailed video on that process, click on the link in the description. This romaine lettuce is done, so I'm going to pull it out and amend the soil in this pot. The first thing I'll do is remove the mulch. I will set this aside and reuse it after I take out the plants and amend the soil. So I have a bag over here of this shredded cedar mulch that I use whenever I mulch the containers. So I will just set it aside, and you can see under this mulch how moist this soil is. The mulch is so important in keeping the soil nice and moist and prevents it from drying out. Okay. There's some bigger chunks in there, so I want to get all that out of there. Okay. Now that I have the mulch out, set aside, I'm just going to go ahead and take out these old, tired romaine lettuce plants. Knock off the soil, try to save as much of that as possible. Okay. The first thing I'll add to our container is this quality bagged compost. So I'll just put a couple scoops of that in there. And then I'll add a couple of scoops of our homemade leaf mold. And as I pour that in, you can see some worms that are in there. This is really rich and luscious stuff. It's great. Okay, so there's the leaf mold. And the last thing I'll add is this organic fertilizer. So I'll add a couple teaspoons in there. And this just assures that we have our nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the NPK. Okay, so let's go ahead and just gently till this in. I don't want to break up the structure of that soil too much. Just gently till it in. It will break down and make its way down into the container. I don't want to till this up too much because the structure of the soil below the first couple of inches sustains a lot of life, including those earthworms. Okay, so that is amended. And again, here's another worm. And then I am going to return the mulch and plant when I'm ready. I'll give this soil in this container a few days to a couple of weeks before I replant. So we're going to let it lay fallow for a little bit of time before we plant in here again. I'm growing these Daikon radishes in these large 20-gallon pots. The pots have nice loose soil in them, so when it's time to harvest these Daikon radishes, it should be pretty easy. And here you can see some of those Daikon radishes developing. I have a second pot over here, and what's interesting about this pot is that even though I started this pot earlier than the other pot, these plants are smaller. Not sure the reason for that, maybe because of the weather at the time that I sowed the different pots. So you can see some radishes there. I'll harvest these Daikon in another 3 or 4 weeks. In this pot I have beets called Detroit Dark Red. I'm growing these in succession. So here is my second pot that I sowed several weeks later, and you can see they're coming along nicely. And I have a third pot, and these are my youngest plants. These are about 4 weeks old. So after these beets are ready and I start harvesting, I should have beets for several weeks. I purchased the seeds for these Corvair spinach from the San Diego Seed Company, and I sowed them back in November, and they're ready to go. Really gorgeous, large leaves. So let's go ahead and pick some of this. And of course, after harvesting, more leaves will come back. Okay, looks good. All right, there's all that nice spinach. In this pot, I have garlic that I sowed back in January, and they're doing nicely. And let's take a look at the back wall. Back wall, we have Italian parsley, English thyme, another pot of Pak Choi, and some mint. So there you have it. This was our February garden update. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Let's take a look at what we harvested today. In this first basket, we have Corvair spinach, Swiss chard, Dinosaur kale, and in the second basket, these large Japanese turnips and carrots. please consider liking and sharing this video with people you know. Please consider subscribing to our channel. We would really appreciate your support. And as always, thank you so much for watching.